I want to hear what people they talk. Want to get a shakeleti love. It's a love when I want to get another one. I go take and do waiting I love. Waiting you love, oh. No be waiting I love, oh. Waiting I love, I go do what we love, I go. Go no be vodka. Mr. Money Ginger. But when I know the ways that Mr.
You let it yum 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 yum. Naya pere, mat naya pese. You let it yum 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 yum. Naya pere, muna kapela, chora kakisa, oyari hele pere, balungina baire.
Welcome once again. We are here to discuss the topical issues happening in Ghana, our beloved country. And I'll just go straight to the point today. I have with me my usual panelist, Dr. Neil Okine, an assistant professor of actuarial science, Appalachian State University, Dr. Zita Seshi, a sociologist based in Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome. Thanks for joining me again this afternoon.
Thank you for the opportunity. Lee, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
I'm good. You gearing up for the summer?
Yeah. Yep. I think I'm ready. One or two conferences here and there, but yeah.
Well, it's still pretty chilly around here, so I'm not really feeling the summer.
I said you're gearing up. It's coming, so you have to be ready. Neil is preparing to be ready. Are you ready? That's the thing.
We'll see. When we begin to see the sun consistently, that's when we feel ready.
It's good to. I don't miss academia. I don't miss academia. All the the conferences are good. Good time to mingle with colleagues and I love conferences because you get to be in an intellectual bubble. As somebody who is getting roasted by people who are less knowledgeable on social media, I really miss conferences because then you're among equals. There is respect and people don't come for you. So for those of you taking jab at me on social media, keep it going. Keep it going. Somebody have to make the news. Keep it going. Because a friend of mine just said, Zita, why are you holding Ghana on a standstill? I said, I don't know. They should leave me alone. But hey, good stuff.
All right. Well, let's get right into business. So today we have about three major topics to talk about. We will talk about, it sounds like it's an old issue, given the fact that, we never run short of issues or controversial or even topical issues in Ghana. So we'll talk about the decision of the Attorney General to discontinue the Cecilia Dapa corruption case. And then we'll move on to talk about Dr. Mahmoud Baumia on the campaign trail, some of the things that have transpired in his activities out there. And we will talk about the exchange rate in connection with our discussion about Dr. Baumia's campaign. He was basically the ruling party's cheerleader when it came to conversations around, arresting the exchange rate and setting Ghana on a more prosperous economic future. So, and then we'll move on to talk about some aspects of the Electoral Commission with respect to the ongoing registration exercise and some of the things that have come up. And yes, so these are the three main issues that we're going to talk about this afternoon. So, without wasting any time, I just pulled up a news item here that is supposed to lead us in this conversation, and it's with respect to the discontinuation of the Cecilia Dapar case. So a couple of weeks ago, the Attorney General was on Newsfile, and I just pulled a news item on Joy FM, and I'm going to read what his position is with respect to the case. So that the Attorney General, Godfred Dame, has clarified that neither his office nor the Economic and Organized Crimes Office absolved former Sanitation Minister Cecilia Dapar of corruption allegations. This is despite the fact that the Attorney General advised Yoko against conducting money laundering investigations into the affairs of the former minister. So basically, the Attorney General had advised Yoko from conducting money laundering investigation into the matter. So according to Mr. Dame, after conducting months of investigation, the Office of the Special Prosecutor and the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, that's the FBI, did not find any suspicions of corruption. So speaking to Newsfile on Saturday, Mr. Dame said that the special prosecutor letter announcing a discontinuation of Madame Dapar's case, the OSP categorically stated that no evidence of corruption was found in the frozen bank accounts or assets linked to the former sanitation minister and her associates. So essentially what the Attorney General is saying is that the initial investigation that was conducted by the special prosecutor didn't find any credible evidence of corruption against Madame Dapar, even though the amount of money that was found, that was alleged to have been stolen from her residence, that set off this investigation was about $1 million in cash and $300,000. I mean, 300,000, is it pounds or euros? I think it was euros, 300,000 euros in cash. Right. So she had this amount of money sitting in her house. In fact, this is the amount that was stolen. But, there's evidence to suggest that the money was more than that in terms of how much cash she had in her residence. But apparently, the OSP didn't find any credible evidence of corruption against her or any evidence of corruption. And so the Attorney General is then saying that since there was no evidence of corruption, then the money laundering investigation should be discontinued. And beyond this case, I'll give you guys the opportunity to talk about how you feel about this situation in terms of one of the debilitating existential problems in our country, which is corruption. I mean, how does the discontinuation of this case impact the fight against corruption in Ghana, given that this is sort of the most debilitating problem that we have in the country? So, Zita, I'll let you go first, and then I will come to me.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, this is actually disappointing. I prepared for this topic last week, and I watched a long discussion with a lawyer called John Baden, and on one of the TV channels, and he established, because most of us are not lawyers, and so we have judged Cecilia Dapar from the court of public opinion. And in the court of public opinion, to us, she's corrupt and she's guilty. But according to the lawyer, he said that there is no specific law in Ghana that is able to indict her because money laundering must be linked to an unlawful activity. And that is where or what the office of the special prosecutor could not establish, that it is not about her having the money, but it becomes a crime when it must be linked to an unlawful activity which leads to illicit funds. And so according to lawyer John Baden, that is the foundation, and there's no law that she has broken, because when they trace all these monies, it's not linked to any illicit activity. And so that is how they came to the conclusion that she should be let off the hook. Again, this raises issues on assets declaration and the laws in Ghana about assets declaration. It is important because now, because the law on assets declaration, it seems some people are above the law. We are not able to even leverage that to indicate that when you were coming to office, this is what you have, and now this is what you have. These are the discrepancies, and so we are able to pursue. We have maybe grounds to be able to pursue some legal action against her. So, I mean, in as much as this is disappointing when it comes to the rule of law, this issue tested the rule of law and it shows gaps in our legal system. And from the legal standpoint, they can't charge her for money laundering because it is not linked to any illicit activity. It is quite disappointing, but I'm going with the legal interpretation. But we all know that in the court of public opinion, we believe that she's guilty, and this whole situation smells of high levels of corruption.
So, I mean, Nee, do you think this was a case of poor investigation, or it's just that the evidence doesn't exist that this money could be tied to some illegal activity? Because, having $1 million in cash is very unrealistic. $1 million in addition to 300,000 euros in cash. There's, yeah, I mean,
yeah. All I'm going to say is I disagree with Zita on this one. What is going on should not be acceptable, and I'm sure if the powers that be wanted to prosecute, they would find a way to do that. My opinion on this is any politician, anybody who cannot explain their wealth, I'm sure that there are laws that, I mean, it will not be like a one-on-one law, but there are ways. If they want to prosecute, they can prosecute. And if she cannot explain the sources of her wealth, that is somehow linked to corruption or doing something, and that responsibility should be on her. It shouldn't be on whoever. How are you getting all this money? So if you cannot provide us with any tangible explanation, you are clearly doing something wrong, because 1+1 is 2. And if you cannot show us how you got to 2, it means that something is going wrong. So I just feel it's again another issue of corruption going unchecked, and that's been the reason why countries like Ghana, we are not doing well, because we need our system and our powers, our political, whoever the system should try to do a better job in prosecuting cases like this. We cannot go on like this forever. People should be held accountable. You have all this money just in cash under your bed. It does not make no sense. If you cannot explain it, there's something wrong. And recently, I was listening to one of the TV shows, and it looks like in an attempt to explain the whole thing, they were saying like her niece was traveling to Ghana and she distributed some money, like $10,000 each to.
Yeah, I hear it was about $200,000.
Yeah, $200,000 to different people on the plane. I mean, that alone is wrong, right? If you're moving $200,000, you have to declare. So they didn't declare. They said they shared to different people on the plane. They got to Ghana and they took the money. Come on, so I'm like, they just don't want to do the right thing. If they really want to do the right thing, I mean, this case, I feel it's not difficult to prosecute. But again, it's we are in a country where accountability and honesty is low. So I'm not surprised.
I think in Ghana it's like the end justifies the means. Right? Once you have the money, nobody cares how you got it. That's why in this country, like for instance in the US and other developed countries, people who have illegal money in cash find it difficult to spend it because the moment they begin to spend the money, it raises a red flag. And the authorities will look into how you came by that money. And in Cecilia, the past case, it's just unlikely that that money is going to be traced to a credible source. So, in my opinion, maybe the law may say that there should be an underlying crime to before, for instance, an investigation of money laundering can continue. But we have refused to trace the money to what could potentially be the underlying crime. So we just stopped at the fact that, okay, we found this money, right? But that's the end of it. But we are supposed to investigate how they got the money. And then I believe that once you trace the money and follow the money, the Americans will always say, follow the money. If you follow the money, you're going to end up in a place that is likely to be a corrupt place. So again,
But
our
Chairman,
president, yeah.
is tracing the money to a corrupt place an indication of an illicit or a criminal activity? And that is, I'm not saying what is happening again is right. This is definitely somebody who is getting away because of a connection to the incumbent government. And
Yeah.
so, because what has happened is, again, dents the image of the MPP and the incumbent government. We have understood and established that fact. But I'm not sure if you've had the opportunity to really read the report, because I listened to this discussion for an hour last week, and there has not been there have been issues of having her business. She has a business. They cited her brother who died, who where a dead person's account is transmitting cash flow here and there. But the point is, for us to have linked it to an illicit activity or criminal activity has become the loophole that have made her gotten away. And I do understand that if we trace the money, we can find a source. But my question to you is tracing the money to, let's say she was awarded a contract or something, to a corrupt source, does that make it criminal or an illicit activity?
I mean, that would be the underlying crime. If it turns out that money that was meant for something else is what she has put in her home, then that is a crime right there. So, I mean, I think that usually it starts with the money laundering and then you get to the crime. You don't start with the crime first because money is laundered and you're trying to find the source of the laundered money. And I mean, they lawyers will always say prima facie case means that this money couldn't have been gotten through legal means, but we want to be able to pin it down on something concrete. And so they begin investigations and tracing the money. Some of these bills have serial numbers. You can trace it to the source. You can investigate and find.
Do we have the technology for that?
I don't know, but I just feel that the money was so much that they could have found the source of the money. I mean, you can't have over $1 million sitting in your account, in your house, and then you can't trace all that money, at least some of it, to the original source of that money. And chances are that that amount of money couldn't have been gotten through legal means because you cannot get legal money in that amount of cash sitting in your house. So I believe that in this particular instance, they used the law to absolve somebody who should be penalized by the law of a potential crime.
For me,
Um,
for me, all I can say is the way everybody seems to, all the states, institutions that are supposed to prosecute her, kind of trying to show their protector. It looks like this runs deeper than we think, and that's how I feel about this. You have people in the Council of State trying to defend her, trying to say, "Oh, I was like, wow, like this thing is really." They really don't want to leave anything to chance. They are trying to protect her, and it keeps me wondering, what are they trying to hide?
And I think in Ghana, we are generally very hypocritical because there are people that know a lot of corruption going on, but I mean, it's probably off the record conversation. And so when they come on TV or when we complain, they all complain with us. But they probably know individuals who have amounts of money sitting in their homes that were gotten through illegal means. So, I mean, this is not surprising. These things have happened before. Our president is famously referred to as the clearing agent. He clears his officials even before the investigations commence. And so this is no surprise. When Cecilia Dapa wrote her resignation, the president thanked her for her service and kind of was assured that she was going to be absolved of whatever charges that were leveled against her. So, this is no surprise. But again, there's another allegation of corruption, and this time it's been made by the member of parliament of North Tongue, Samuel Okujeto Oblakwa. He alleges that hotels that were owned by SNIT are going to be sold to Brian Achampong. And he feels that due process wasn't followed in terms of trying to find buyers for the hotels. Again, he has petitioned SFRAJ to look into the matter, but this is another case of, I mean, it's a corruption allegation, but I'm sure there's room to use the laws to, get away with this stuff. I don't know if you guys have followed the story, but
Oh
what
yeah,
is your, yeah.
I followed the story, and I look at this MPP, and I'm like, wow, this guys don't play with grabbing properties here and there. It's like everybody. And I said this the last time. This government, they've really made a lot of MPP politicians extremely rich, and this is another example of it. You have, you know a government institution, and some of this, I'm sure the price, it will go for cheap, just like they were trying to do uh with the Ejapa Go deal. Just grab the state's property very cheap, and that becomes your own, and then you make money over time. It's the same thing going on here. These are very important hotels, as far as I'm concerned. You have Labadi Beach, La Palm Royal Beach, Almina Beach Resort, Ridge Royal Hotel, Bushua Beach Resort. These are not small,
Hotels.
Yes,
Yeah, I hear Labadi Beach is probably one of the most profitable hotels
yeah,
in.
it's a 5-star hotel. La
Yeah.
Palm Royal Beach is 4-star,
Yeah.
Elmina 3-star, Ridge Royal 3-star, and Bushua 3-star. So
So
these are huge investment SNID made, and now they are trying to. And
and they're
again,
offloading. Yeah.
yes, they want to offload it for cheap, and for them to control it. It's like controlling the economy, whatever. Same thing we saw, people, MPP, this guy who died, giving state land to as a will in
Some
the
say John.
John, a whole forest reserve as a will. Like, I'm like, what is going on with this people? Like, it's like everybody knows that. I don't know whether there's approval from the top that, hey, grab what you can grab. I don't know what's going on. It's like, let's grab. Everybody's grabbing. And it's so sad. No institution, nothing. This John thing. We saw whatever was in the will. I've not heard anything about it. That forest reserve is actually in the will. Nothing. It's like, oh, okay, blah blah blah, and that's it. I don't know, man. It's sad. It's really sad.
But who knows what has become of that? Has the state reclaimed all that stuff?
No, I'm not sure.
This issue just raises concerns about the law in Ghana and who really does the law serve, because Cecilia Dapa's case is clearly again an issue of somebody getting away because of their position and who the law serves. And my thing is, does this whole issue of massive corruption in the MPP requires us to revisit our laws and be able to tighten things up, whereby we can be able to penalize people? I mean, at this point, I'm wondering if Ghana in itself as a country has not been sold to somebody with the level of high levels of corruption. With the when you mentioned Labadi, I when I was doing my national service, we had Ghana hosted the port. It was called Pomoka. So it was like West African Port Association conference. So people in the West African sub-region who work at different port institutional or national port organizations, Ghana hosted a seminar like that. And as a national service personnel, I was one of the people. We got trained by uh, the presidential people from the president's office. We got trained by people from the president's office to be able to handle that. And so you mentioning it just bring me back to that experience. And I think it should not be sold. These hotels should be, I think, upgraded and updated and continuously used to be able to generate different sources of income to make things better and not be sold, because we know that once it's sold and it's a private property, then it becomes private ownership. Everything, it becomes a profit making and a venture, and the interest of the collective is not considered. So yeah, it's nostalgic to remember how we got trained by people from the president's office, and we had to help the conference attendees navigate. And they had a dinner, and the conference took place at Labadi Beach Hotel. It was well organized, and it was one of the fond memories for doing my national service at the Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Chema, last point. Recently, we got a report that SNIT will not be able to pay whatever pensions in a couple of years, right? So, and this is an investment SNIT did, right? So, what's going on? Is this a way to? Is this their plan to get the pension back on track or whatever? I don't know. Why are you trying to sell the assets of the fund? It does not make
Yeah,
any
I
sense.
mean, this sounds rather backwards
Yes,
because I
yes,
mean these are profitable
yes,
assets
yes. Look at Labadi Beach.
of
Trust me,
state, right?
Labadi Beach will
And
make a lot of money.
yeah,
So
and, yeah, and when they take contributions, the goal here is to invest it in a
invest.
profitable venture
Yes, and
so that
you
they
did.
can
You
they
have
can
all,
make, yeah.
you have all this investment, and now you want to sell it for cheap.
Yeah, so it's kind of counter to what has been said about SNIT in recent times. The fact that, projecting into the future is very likely that they may not be able to pay future benefits. And now you are selling your profitable assets. What investment are you putting the contributions that you are taking into? You understand? So this is rather counter to the revelations that have been made recently about the state of SNIT. And again, this went under the guise of the name of the guy's company, Brian Champon. I've forgotten the name of the company. He has a company that essentially all these different businesses come under. And that was fronted as the buyer of these hotels. Now, they were, according to the report, I think there was a number of the hotels that there are other shareholders. And usually, if you're the majority shareholder and you're trying to sell your share in the business, you have to contact the other shareholders and probably make the offer to them first. And then if they decline, then you can open it up to other buyers. So apparently they gave the existing shareholders only, I think 45 days or something, some ridiculous number of days like that, to come up with something in the range of $8 million to purchase these hotels. And obviously, most people don't have $8 million sitting down waiting to buy anything. And so I think they didn't have enough time to raise the money. And so that's how come they automatically forfeited that option. And Brian Achampon's company swooped in to sweep or clean up these assets. So again, with the fact that our laws are very important, the only solution is the tongue, right? Allegations of corruption are only dealt with at the polls, pretty much. We saw this in 2008. There were similar allegations of corruption. We heard of the Hotel du Wawa situation, where President Kufuor's son bought a hotel worth $5 million, and everyone was wondering if indeed he was the one that bought it, given that you couldn't identify any particular business that he did that could have given him that amount of money to buy a hotel. And so, I mean, the reasonable conclusion was that it was, Kufuor that was using his son to purchase the hotel. And then another incident was Jake Obechebi Lamte buying his official residence in Ridge. And so I think in 2008, one of the key issues going into the election was allegations of corruption. And I think the MPP was booted out of power just based on the clear, evidence of corrupt practices by people who had been entrusted with the will of the people. And so, I think that's the only way out in this particular case, especially with Cecilia the power. And yes, and then yeah.
And for me, I feel it's two things that could happen, right? NDC comes to power because of all this unseen levels of corruption that's going on. It's two ways they could go. They could be like, okay, we are going to really prosecute these people because what is going on is unheard of. Or they will keep quiet, NDC will keep quiet and say, okay, these guys have shown us the way to do it. Let's also grab more. I hope NDC don't go through don't go on that route. They have to prosecute because at the end of the day, what is going on is not helping anybody. Yeah, I mean, it's helping themselves and their family, but on overall, the country don't benefit. So I hope the NDC come in and try and do some prosecution because what's going on is not funny anymore. We cannot continue on this trajectory. No. Everybody comes and still bigly, heavily, and at some point we will end up stealing each other because the way they are grabbing is crazy.
Yeah, Ghana cannot continue this way.
No, we can't.
And is there, I don't know which body is responsible, but is there a way before a government takes office we can have like a list of all public assets and where we know that, okay, currently Ghana, these are the things that are owned or partly owned by state agencies, and we can have that? Because for me, the concerning issues is different public assets that we don't know at this point is being bought behind us, and we don't know that, right?
I think we kind of have an idea, but I'm sure we know that. But the problem is,
I'm referring to a comprehensive list, so we are aware, because all we will hear Achimota Forest has been bought by somebody. When did that happen? Now, if Samuel Ablakwa Okujeto did not provide this, we will know that a conglomerate of partly or state investment in terms of hotels is being traded. And so if there's a way we can have, and there should be a refresher every 4 years, have a list so we know that this has been sold, this is a public measure with a private entity, so we are where we don't want to go like, oh, we have a fair idea. We want and these are the way to hold government accountable. until we have this public documentation every 4 years where we know where things are, what assets are jointly owned, and how much did they accrue, and what did they accrue in the past 4 years, and the state of that particular institution. Are they operating at a loss? Or are they at do they need to be bought out? These things, we need that, because it's becoming unbecoming. We will hear Achimota Forest has been sold by who, when, we don't know. Now, if Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa did not bring this out, we will know. We will be there, and NDC will take over power, only for us to hear that these chains of hotel is now owned by an individual. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, it's good that some of these MPs are performing their oversight duties and catching some of these things. But I think the biggest issue is the fact that we are not strict about the declaration of assets of public officials, so that when you come into office and you declare your assets and all other businesses that you make money from, then by the time you leave office, if we conduct an audit of your assets and find that they are in excess of how much you came in with, then there can be credible, a credible case of being corrupt while in office can be made against you, because we know how much you earn as a public official, and this is how much asset that you had prior to assuming office. So how do you then end up with this amount of assets after leaving office? So I think that was one of the biggest gaps. There's just so many things that are gaps in Ghana's system that we cannot possibly, talk about today. But yes, I mean, we can go on and go on and on and on about this matter. But
and state assets as well. I know we can talk about public official, but state assets as a whole. What does Ghana currently have in terms of what investments does Ghana have in terms of public assets? Like list them. Ghana Ports and Harbors Authorities. These and give us the ratio, who we are in partnership with. It will provide a better understanding. A document where we can all refer to know state assets, and also of course assets of people in public office. It makes it easier to track. But right now we don't even know what we have as and I'm saying, are we sure Ghana is for Ghanaians?
All right, well, let's move along and go on to Baumia and what he's been doing on the campaign trail. Last week we talked about the comments that he made about the church when the conversation of churches paying taxes came up, and then he said, the churches do so much that, in fact, the state probably would rather have to pay charges instead of them paying taxes. He backtracked that. He kind of made a U-turn on that, and he said he was joking. So we'll take it that he was joking. But again, while on the campaign trail, he got fact-checked real time, and I'm sure if you've been following the news in Ghana, you may have come across this. But I'm going to play this video, and we'll talk about it.
Where you were with your alawa, but I think that I will check with the Ministry of Finance immediately. So we have to follow people who have vision. We don't have to follow people who think in terms of impossibilities. We think in terms of possibilities. When my opponent was in government, he abolished the nursing training allowances. And we said, we will restore the nursing training allowances. And we have restored the nursing training allowances. Can you trust my opponent with nursing training allowances? You cannot.
Now school. Then you ask your question. Then we go 4 questions. And His Excellency is ready to answer all your questions.
My name is Abdulalim Jaria, an nursing student from Techima Nkobo NMTC. The question I want to ask is, when are we getting Alawa? Since I started my school, since first year, I've not gotten Alawa until now, and I'm in my last semester now. And some of us are not being able to pay our school fees. Next week like this, we'll be writing our exams. Those who will not be able to pay their fees will be sacked. They wouldn't be allowed to write exams. So if the Alawa were given to us, they would have been able to pay their fees. So my question is, when are we getting Alawa?
Thank you. If I told you some question, I know I'm going to say mine. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, these are the questions from the youth of Bono East region. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those questions. I think the first question had to do with when we are getting Alawa for our district. So I think that is a question I will take to the Ministry of Finance. I wasn't sure of where you were with your Alawa, but I think that I will check with the Ministry of Finance immediately I return, and I will make sure that they pay you your Alawa if it has not been paid. I will push it. I'll push it for you.
All right. So this was Baumia fact-checked real time by a student who hadn't received the Alawa in 3 years. And Baumia went on the campaign trail to brag about having reinstated the Alawa without knowing that they were in default. Any initial thought on it? But there's a follow-up video, but I want your initial thoughts, and then I'll play that video, and then we continue the conversation.
For me, I have to say is that girl is really brave, and I watched it. I was like, wow, sometimes you expect some of this our big men to be brave, and even our journalists asking, straight, thought-provoking, right, fact-based questions, and they don't do that. But this is a student, and this female student just asked the right question at the right time when given the opportunity. She wasn't afraid to speak to power, and I was like, I was impressed. I was really, really impressed, and that's all I took away from it.
Yeah, Zita.
I agree. I mean, what a wonderful time to be alive. Maybe like you were saying the other day, the underdogs might be the younger generation that, you were arguing they may be more discerning in terms of how they vote. And so it's good to see him being questioned. I mean, for a man who's under his reign, national service personnel have been struggling with their allowances for the past, 3 years. And there's been concerns about that. I would be skeptical on going on public platforms to, be making such bold statements. But again, like Nee rightly said, what a bold young lady to go out there, fact check him and said, I have not received my allowance. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but this is not my lived experience. And so it is amazing to have Baumia, caught in his own net in real time. And it's just amazing. So way to go. We, like they say on social media, that little girl needs to be protected at all costs. She needs to be protected at all costs. She's a national treasure. What a way to speak truth to power. And I'm happy to see the young people becoming bold and addressing issues and not being afraid to challenge their leaders. I mean, this has given me a considerable level of hope. And I will be excited to see how the the 2024 December votes go, and hopefully there is data on people between a certain age range, let's say 18 and 22, how they vote. I'll be interested to see the choices they made, and if that choices is reflective of what is currently happening in Ghana's economy. So way to go.
Yeah. Okay, so just on that question, usually what they do is they conduct exit polls. So exit polls are conducted when, for instance, once you cast your vote, there are pollsters that are waiting, and they ask you to tell them who you voted for. So they take down, they record your age group, your sex, and your your racial background and all that, basic information about yourself. And it's those exit polls that tell the groups or the various demographic groups and who they voted for. I've never seen any exit polls in Ghana's elections. So I think it's something that the pollsters have to take up. That's the only way you can tell which age group voted for which political party. So I think, we've been doing pretty well in polling these days, and I would imagine that some, pollsters will take it upon themselves to conduct exit polls, and that will be very important and I think political parties themselves can actually take this upon
Should be
themselves.
interested in that. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's good data.
It's good data. It's good data. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a way they can digitize it. Just give them. You don't even need to ask them, because sometimes asking it makes people comfortable. Put it on a tablet.
Yeah.
Quick survey. Age range. Have the age range category, gender, perhaps ethnic group, and that's it. So we can collate that data, because I am just interested based on the way the little girl spoke. I would love to see how the younger generation of Ghanaians are voting.
Yeah, I would bet that they're going to vote overwhelmingly for the opposition, just given the fact that within their adult years they have undergone the most hardship conditions that Ghana has ever experienced in her history. And still staying on this particular issue, Dr. Baumia, basically, I think he followed up on his promise, and let's listen to him.
The controller transferring 177 million Ghana has the controller transferring 177 million Ghana cedis to the Ministry of Health to pay the nursing training allowances. So I have also alerted Dr. Okoboy to be on standby. When the money hits the Ministry of Health account, they should move it quickly to the accounts of the nursing trainees so that they will have their alawa. It will drop car import duty waivers that nurses and midwives used to enjoy.
Okay, so Baumia didn't only stop at making the promise about the reinstatement of the allowance, but he went further to talk about removing import duties on cars for health workers. But let's stay on this particular issue. It seems like Baumia has no problem getting the government to do things that he feels are important, because he has directed the Controller and Accountants General's office to transfer the funds for the payment of the student allowances. So maybe he's not the mate after all. He might have some, driving privileges. What do you guys think?
Well, we all know Baumia lacks credibility. He's been trumpeting the idea that nobody listened to him in the government. After all those, lectures he gave on the economy and the cities and whatever, he was trying to tell us he was just a mate. They didn't listen to him, whatever, blah blah blah. But again, here is evidence against that. He just clearly showed us that he has some power in this government, and sometimes, you just have to give people time to really make a fool of themselves, and that's what is happening here. You are trying to tell us you don't have any power, but now you've been able to make all this money, almost 200 million Ghana cedis. If you do not have power, how do you get that funds moved in such record time? So we all know he lacks credibility, no accountability, just like the president. I'm not surprised here. There's nothing new here, and I hope they can. Baumia, if he feels the problems he's realized under this government that he wants to fix. I hope he uses that same power and speed to solve some of these problems before the election. Yeah.
Yeah. So Zita, Baumia is attempting something that I have never seen done in politics, and I read about politics a lot. And based on my personal observation and the reading that I have done, he's attempting some sort of movement, right? He in some instances he seeks to take credit for certain things that this government has done, and then in so many instances he tries to distance himself from some of the shortcomings of the administration. It's a maneuver that I find it difficult. I don't know how it's going to work, whether it's even a possibility, but this is a strategy. So I'm not going to be surprised that he's going to take credit for if eventually the money hasn't been paid yet. Apparently, it's been wired, but it hasn't been paid yet. But if it happens, I'm sure he's going to take full credit for it. But how is he able to dissociate himself from other things that would be characterized as shortcomings of this government?
And I think Baumia is just in an interesting time in history where, like you always say that the digital footprint. We are we are playing back all the promises, the enthusiasm that he had at the beginning of his tenure, and we are looking 7 years in, and it's a total disaster. I mean, this is just the honeymoon strategy. The best years to get everything done is an election year. It's just an attempt to kind of appease the people with that. He has power, but it is when they know that power is at stake, that is when they leverage that power. So I mean, we are Baumia's strategy. I don't know how it's going to work because we have him on record on multiple tapes saying one thing and then now trying to play another thing. I think he has to be Baumia in this present time. I think he has the most difficult job. I think he's going to struggle as a presidential candidate because we can cite, and the fact that he has dubbed his campaign as the campaign of possibility, that in itself, the name is funny. But if I'm allowed to take this discussion further, I was watching a video where again he was, like you're rightly saying, touting the free SHS policy. Oh, we did this. And as a result, there's more enrollment for girls and there's gender parity. As somebody who wrote my doctoral research on education, I'm like, my dear Dr. Baumia, gender parity doesn't end when it comes to enrollment. There's usually gender parity at the enrollment stage. What happens is the completion rate is where the problem, where multiple factors allow girls to drop out. For instance, not having access to sanitary kits. And I think that President Mahama in his time had, a free sanitary pad campaign or project initiative going on. And that is laudable. Even in some aspects, North America, we are being taxed for sanitary pads, which is wrong. Like, it's our human right, but in European countries, it's not taxed, and I think it's easy to have access to these things. And so these are the key issues Baumia needs to be focused on. It is not about gender parity enrollment. It's about what happens between enrollment and completion rate. What leads to girls dropping out? And these are multiple factors: sexual harassment, teenage pregnancy, dropping out because of not having access to sanitary kits, poverty, and again, a culture that prioritizes male education over female education. These are the things. But for a Leonard colleague to stand in his campaign and say, oh, free SHS policy, and as a result, we have more girls have enrolled, and so we've met the quota for gender parity. I was a bit confused because we know that you can only measure the effectiveness of gender parity when we look at the completion rate versus, boys versus girls completion rate. So for me, I don't know if this is a campaign of possibility based on where I'm standing. And for me, Baumia has lost all credibility. He trying to pull a fast one to have the money released so that the the young chaps are paid their allowances does not impress me. It is just like marriage. In the honeymoon phase, you get everything you want. Once we get into several years in the marriage, real character begins to show out. We've seen Baume's character throughout these 7 years, and this, trying to ease tension and appease people strategy, it will not work with me. We've seen him, we have records of him saying one thing 7 years ago, and we measure, we are doing politics of what? Track record. We measure, and from where I stand, I am not impressed. He needs to cool down on touting this free SHS policy. It is not about enrollment, it's about completion and continuation. That is how you know an effectiveness of a policy.
Well, Chairman, I have some more things for Baumia to work on since he's on a hot streak right now. So first one, we know our dollar is hitting 15 cities. He should try and work on that.
Okay, we're going to come to that specifically.
Okay, I just want to give him some assignments.
No, we're going to come to that. I mean, yeah, it's perfectly lined up to for a proper conversation on that matter. But anyway, Zita, yeah, you make a very interesting point with the completion rate or graduation rates versus enrollments, and there are colleges all over the place that when you look at their acceptance rates, it's like 90% acceptance rate, and then when you look at graduation rate, then it goes down to 50%. Whereas so I mean, enrollment is not something. I mean, it's something, but you cannot completely rely on that as evidence of having achieved parity, as you said, right? But also, Baumia is a very interesting guy. His campaign slogan is "It is possible," right? And usually there's a famous quote that says that change is difficult, but it's possible. So it is usually change that is difficult, and then you would say, well, there's room by using the word possible. But interestingly, he is the incumbent, and then he has this sort of wishful, optimistic slogan. You are optimistic, but it is basically swimming against the tide. If you are the incumbent, you don't use that type of a slogan, right? You are the status quo. It is the change that is usually difficult, and so we can characterize it as something that is possible, even though it's an uphill battle. But he has some interesting things around his campaign, and I find that campaign slogan, which on the face of it may sound optimistic, but if you look at the situation, it is very pessimistic. It's a very pessimistic campaign slogan. But I mean, let's move on. Again, back to the exchange rate that Ni attempted to introduce. So let's listen to Baumia here. Let's listen to him.
Exchange rate. The Ghana cedi has obtained the dubious distinction of being the weakest performing currency in Africa at this point in time. Interestingly, the NDC Green Book claims exchange rate stability as one of their unprecedented achievements. In an open economy with market determination of prices, exchange rate movements are the most important indicator of underlying macroeconomic fundamentals. As the saying goes, when in doubt, observe the exchange rate. The lesson from history for governments is that you cannot manage the economy with propaganda. In fact, you can engage in all the propaganda you want, but if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. The type of free fall that we are seeing with the cedi exchange rate is a vote of no confidence by market players in the management of the economy.
Okay, so Nee, you can take it away. You know, I mean, these are Baumia's words prior to 2016 election. So,
Well, before I come to the CD depreciation thing, a word that he used was propaganda, and there is so much propaganda going on in this government that it's crazy. Propaganda relating to doomsday. We've seen that people are experiencing doomsday, but hey, they said there's no doomsday and we should come out with our own timetable. Propaganda with corruption. This SML thing, Agufado, you use taxpayers' money to pay for what? An investigation. The report has been filed. Release a full report. He said no. Propaganda. Now we cannot even pay our debt. Our credit is junk status. Hey, they said the economy is rebounding. Propaganda, giving people haircuts, DDEP, people losing investment. Now pensioners cannot be paid. All they said it's good. Propaganda. Now, these people said gold for oil. Gold for oil was the best thing since sliced bread. Now we are buying fuel for 15 cedis per liter. Propaganda. Inflation. They said, oh, inflation is really weak. It's coming down. Inflation is still on average around 30%. Cement. The last I saw cement, they said now it's going to around 103 cities. In 8 years ago, it was around 27 cities. Still, they said the economy is rebounded. So I don't know who whoever is managing the Baume's campaign right now. It's like they just want to. I mean, and that's why they say it's possible, right? It's possible with the propaganda. They think they can get through to Ghanaians. But coming to the city, we all know his famous quote. When the fundamentals are wrong, the exchange rate will expose you. And we've seen that actually what he said that the NDC put in their green book that managing the exchange rate was one of their best achievement. It's actually come to tell us that, and again, posterity has shown us that they were actually telling us the truth, because at the end of the day, NDC took the CD from 1.2 to 4.2. That's a change of 3. Now, and this MPP took it from 4.2, it's now around 15. That's 10.8. If you look at the jump, it's at almost 360%. That is the 10.8 versus the 3. So clearly, it looks like what the NDC was talking about was right. They were better managers of the depreciation than what MPP has done. I know they talk about COVID, they talk about whatever, but they forget that NDC came into power when we had a financial crisis. There were also health crises like uh, the Ebola and stuff like that. So everybody experienced some crisis here and there, and that financial crisis was the biggest in a while. So, I mean, you cannot always use that as an excuse. And so, the bottom line is they perform worse than the NDC.
yeah, and I took these graphics from CTTV, and I mean, the last time I checked, City is not a hostile media house for the MPP. So why would they put out these figures? And Zita, I don't know if you can see this, but it shows the percent increase or depreciation of the Ghana cedi against the leading currencies by administration. So they took it from 2008, from the period of the redenomination, and they looked at all the different administrations, and I mean, it currently 141% is the highest that Ghana has ever witnessed in terms of its the performance of the cedi against the leading currencies like the United States dollar and the pound sterling. I mean, what is your take on this matter? And again, in the positioning it in the context of the video that we heard of Baumia pointing to the exchange rate as the raw indicator of how the country is performing economically.
Well, I mean, if we should judge Baumia on that, then the MPP, under his of course, leadership, of course, in partnership with President Nana Akufo-Addo, I think they are the worst performing government, looking at the 141%. But I mean, depreciation. I am not an economist, but I'm going to talk about it from the layman's perspective. We know that when you have such a high interest rate, everything is just expensive and life is just difficult. Life is just extremely difficult because the dollar dictates how things move in Ghana. We don't want to talk about fuel prices. Fuel prices will affect transportation in Ghana. We know a lot of people rely on their public transport. It will affect food products, because food products are moved from one geographical location to the other, and this is what we are talking about. So he's the one who's saying it, that when the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. So he has been exposed by the exchange rate at this point, and it is the bemoaning and the desperate economic crisis that Ghanaians are in that is difficult. Some of us are not economists where we look at these things in detail, but we are looking at how the exchange rate is trickling down to our everyday activity, trickling down to our ability to feed our families, trickling down to our ability to be mobile, because fuel prices will go up, or if have not already gone up. I'm not following, but I'm confident that fuel prices are already, high. This is what we are talking about. And I hope Ghanaians are, taking critical look at how the economy is and how this exchange rate is affecting their ability to live decent lives, and it will influence how they're going to make a decision come December 2024. So utterly disappointing. I mean, he said we should go with the exchange rate, so he has been exposed. So he should come and tell us how he's going to salvage it, and we would take it with a pinch of salt. But these are all indication of hard economic times in Ghana, and we all know that majority of the people in Ghana rely on public transport and other things, and therefore this will affect how people are living in Ghana.
Yeah, absolutely. The issue with the exchange rate is the fact that we are heavily dependent on, foreign goods, and I mean, it's basically preaching to the choir at this point if we're going to talk about the impact that the exchange rate has on people's daily lives, right? Because our economic base is still very basic, and so we rely on import, and importers have to convert their money into dollar, and so it's just real. But again, stay on this particular issue, and it may seem like we kind of overflogging the issue, but I'm going to bring up a video here of Akufo-Addo, I believe, in 2008 on this same issue of exchange rate. Again, we currently live in the $1,
1 cedi. In the time of Mills and Mahama, 2 cedis, $1. If I was them, I would say to the people of Ghana, I'm sorry. We are sorry for the poor work we have done. We're going to go and think about ourselves. But that is not the people we're dealing with. The fruits of office, the money under the table has become sweet for them, so they're determined to stay. Are we going to allow that to happen? Are we going to allow that to happen?
right. Well, so should the performance of the CD be the yardstick for determining who to vote for in the upcoming election? Ni?
Well, he was using that as a yardstick. So yes, we should use that same stick, as a measure of the MPP. And per all measures, per all any calculations you do from any angle, it shows that they've performed worse than the NDC. So at the end of the day, if we are going by the data and what he said in the video, then it looks like they failed and they need to be shown the exit.
Yeah. Yeah. Zita. I mean,
I 100% agree with me. We would judge you by your word. So if you're saying that the exchange rate is the, measure or barometer for determining how well a particular government did, then I think that, we should use the same measure for the MPP. We did not make the rules. Nanado and his team made the rules, and they said $1 one CD. Now it's 14.23 CDs to $1, according to my Google stuff here. 14.20, 14 CDs, 23 cents. Do we have cents in Ghana?
it's pesos.
It's pesos. Okay, I am interpreting it in North American currency. But yeah, again, 14 CDs, 23 pesos per the US dollar. This is utterly horrible. This is bad. So Anado, we did not make the rules. You said it. So if that is just the only foundation for voting, I think you and Baumia should pack out of the Flagstaff House. I'm just saying. So I'm glad we have the digital footprint to just remind them, because in the absence of this, I think previously people were easily swayed by campaign promises. But now I think because of, the widespread of the internet and of course, digital footprint on social media, we are able to remind them, we are able to pull old videos and say, this is what you said and you did not deliver, and we will hold you accountable for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of amazing that Baumia became president or vice president, and I mean, essentially, Akufo-Addo became president off the back of this campaign of, or the politics of exchange rate. And most Ghanaians believed Baumia to be the ideal person to address this issue because all his lectures were about the exchange rate. He delivered so many lectures that I think Central University was where he did most of those lectures. And it was always about the exchange rate. And people believe that because he's an economist, he had what it takes to, in his own words, arrest the cedi. And I think at one point, he actually gave himself credit for having effected that arrest, locked the cedi up, and handed the key over to the IGP. And he said this publicly. And now he's pivoted. Baumia no more talks about the exchange rate. He conveniently shifted to digitalization, something that is a global phenomenon. The world all over, we are shifting to more digital-based ways of doing things. And for an individual to want to take credit for that transition, I mean, it's just so dishonest and unbelievably so. So he pivoted to being Mr. Digitalization, was no longer about the economy. I think he has made a few attempts here and there to tie it up with economic progress. It didn't really hold, but it just demonstrates the extent to which somebody would make promises and go with the principle that when we get to the bridge, we're going to cross it. He has no plan. He doesn't know how he's going to effect the promises that he's throwing about, but he believes that when the time comes, he will address it. And I think the reckoning has come. Judgment Day is here. And I think Baumia needs to be judged accordingly. He set his own exams. Let's give the exam to him too and see whether he can pass. Right, and this is fair. In fact, one of the fundamental definitions of justice, right, is this notion of the original position, whereby, for instance, the three of us here, if we wanted a perfectly just society, we would be covered by the veil of ignorance. We don't know our position in society, and so the idea is that if we were to make rules for society, we will make them in a way that it would be fair, because I don't know my economic status. I don't know if I'm going to be a politician. I don't know if I'm going to be a teacher. I don't know if I'm going to be a janitor. So if we come together and decide that we're going to make rules for our society, we are going to make rules in the manner that in case you turn out to be in the worst position, then you are not going to be so disadvantaged. So so basically that's the fundamental principle of justice. And so if we apply that principle and use Baumia's own standards to judge him in this particular instance, we will be perfectly just in doing so. And I think that is what Ghanaians have to do in this upcoming election.
And
it's not a question of, and just 1 minute, it's not a question of whoever is coming, are they going to be better? But let's judge him, and then when we get to those guys, we can deal with them with a similar yardstick, right? Nee.
I was going to say, in the lead up to the elections in 2016, they were saying people like the Peace FM person, I've forgotten his name, Kwame Sefakai.
Yes.
He had one interview. He was like, Mama had two problems. It starts with D. That means dollar and doomsor.
Mm-hmm.
Now see where the dollar is. And these folks are quiet. They are quiet. Mama did a lot of investment in the power generation side, and that propelled the MPP in their first 4 years. And they failed to add to that. And now we are back to depth in the power generation, whatever. And that's why we are having the current doomsor. So what are they doing? All these people who were talking, they are all quiet. And now we see a lot of people apologizing to JM because of the truth and whatever we are experiencing now. And to come to the point of Baumia being Mr. Digitalization, I feel since he failed in the economics world, he decided to pivot here. But even whatever he did, it's not revolutionary. It's not like something that is moving the country 2 steps. It's just following the regular.
Whatever he claimed he did, it's
Whatever he claimed he did. Because if you look at that, the thing in the bus, Mama did it. If you look at the Ghana card, it started way before. Or there's a system that started before, right? Even though it's not called Ghana card, there's a system that started before he came in. So it looks like everything he's trying to claim to have implemented. And recently, ECG came out. They were like, the payments, digitalization, whatever, started way before you came into power. You were just invited for the inauguration. So he tries to kind of, poach all these things to, but it's fine. I want somebody to continue a good policy, but to act like without you, the policy was not, and that's again some of the dishonesty with Baumia, and yeah.
Yeah, and the digitalization stuff is just convenient, right? We are in an age where the technology is available. It's no longer expensive in fact, in many cases, it's actually cheaper. So for one person to want to take credit for all that, I mean, it's just dishonest, to be honest with you. So, I mean, Zita, I don't know if you have anything to add on to this conversation. Otherwise, yes.
Yeah, let's keep it moving, because I agree with Nee and how some of these things that the MPP is taking credit for are things that have the fundamental works were done and they just came to implement it in full swing. And so but that is how politics work in Ghana, where people pinpoint, I did this, I did that, and do not give other people credit. And again, I'm sure we are moving to the issue of the Electoral Commission, because like I said last week, Ghana card is the most priceless, document, or identity information or piece of identity you can have at this point during the whole registration process, because apparently that's the only way they can verify you are Ghanaian. So if we are moving to the EC debate, I would reserve my comments to delve in deeper in the EC debate.
All right. Okay. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. And I have an image here that I want Neil to interpret for us. He's the math person among us, the actuarial scientist, and I want us Neil, how would you read this graph?
You know the funny thing, I saw this graph and I'm like, oh my god, like this is our electoral commission of the country. This is what they produced. Like you gave the yellow color to female, and then your legend you gave the yellow to male. Like, who does this?
But are these things not automated?
Yes, and that's the other thing I'm surprised about. The quality control or the quality assurance processes. Are they just what systems are they using to produce graphics like this? It blew my mind. I'm like, these people could actually, maybe if Mama won, they could actually do this, and they said somebody else won, and it throws the country into, I'm like, and it's not just this. They got other ones wrong too. They got the tally of the.
I'll come to that. I have the image as well.
Yeah, it's like this is our electoral commission. Like, what quality assurances or systems do they have to make sure this thing?
Yeah, I mean, if your student were to give you this, what would be the grade?
Oh no, I'm not giving you. You're probably getting an F on this, because this does not convey any information. It doesn't convey any information. It doesn't. And you have a whole electoral commission of Ghana giving us this, and there was.
Have you seen their office? Have you seen their office building?
Do they have a new one?
Oh yeah, there's a new ultra-modern office building for the Electoral Commission, and this is the garbage that comes out of that building.
Yes, and I'm like, who are they hiring? Like, is it? Come on, this is the highest level of data analytics, and this is the most important data analytics in the country this year.
No, but let me understand. How can you, like? I mean, I'm sincerely trying to understand how you could possibly make this type of mistake, right? Because, I mean, even the free open source software, I mean, Excel won't do this, right? So how does this happen?
Yeah, I don't know the kind of software.
Is it deliberate or what? Is it deliberate? Are they trolling us?
For me, I'm like, it's either they are trying to kind of
they are trolling us. They are trolling us.
They are trying to condition us that they can do mistakes, so that when they declare the results mistakenly, we'll say, "Oh, maybe it happened before." Like, come on, what is going on?
I mean, these things are automated. You put in your data, it'll spit out the graph for you, and it will never, like, there's no software that will ever make this mistake. So how do you end up with this?
It's so sad, and they were happy to post it on their social media platform. And I was like, wow, we have the whole Electoral Commission of Ghana.
Yeah, okay, let's assume that they did it manually and it was a sincere mistake. But don't they pass it on from one person to another before eventually it gets out?
You saw the boss, nobody saw the mistake. Nobody saw it. Oh my God. Yeah. I was like, wow.
But and these things, sometimes when we point them out and we take them seriously, some people think we are being elitist and bourgeois, because somebody can just say, why? I mean, you can simply just flip them around and then it solves your problem. But given the amount of resources that you give to an institution such as the Electoral Commission, come on.
Imagine
This should warrant firing of who.
Yes, that's what I was saying. Yes, and even the firing is not the people, the EC herself, because imagine declaring election results in any constituency. Yes, this is going straight to the law court. It's going straight because who won? Nobody won.
Yeah.
Everybody claimed victory. Yeah. Nobody won.
So the person will look at the legend and will say, "No, we won according to the legend." Yes. And then the other person will look at the pie itself and say, "No, based on the pie, we won."
We won. So let's go to the court. I don't know what they are trying to do, but it's really shameful, and they should get their act together. I don't know what softwares they are using to produce all this. They should try and make sure they have a good quality control systems in there, because it's getting ridiculous. And it wasn't one, it wasn't two, it was like 3 mistakes on the trot.
Yeah, there's the other one too. I mean, Zita, I don't know if you want a piece of this, but I mean, this is we
this is interesting.
Like this.
No, it is interesting, and I agree with both you and me. I mean, first of all, Excel will give you the thing easily. Excel is the most basic software that we use for, and I believe that, considering, like you're saying, they have a new building, such an investment, I'm sure the software for creating this pie chart should have done a better job. So how you confuse the color for male and female is problematic. Also, the issue that I have is, do you have people who how do you call read over a document before you bring it out? That is the key question. Do you have people who will screen and just make sure that proofread is the word I'm looking for to make, because to release this, that means you don't have any people proofreading documents before it's released? No, because even basic standard, an institution, you and I can make mistake. You and I can not proofread, especially as academics, we're sending an email quickly. But as an institution, who is in the communications department in the EC? Because you don't have people who are proofreading. People are on, heads needs to roll. People need to be fired. Because if you can't get somebody to proofread this report and you bring it out, I mean, what are you trying to tell us? Is the EC trying to tell us not to have confidence in them prior to the December 2024 elections? Are they trying to tell us that our confidence level in them should be low? Because this should not be happening. And I think people should be fired, especially the communications department.
Yeah. And again, I've had arguments with my colleagues on some of these high school platforms, and sometimes I've been labeled as being overly critical. But for me, if you make some of these very basic mistakes, it means that you don't even attach any seriousness to the job. And so really entrusting you with a big job, it means that it's just prone to even bigger mistakes. So some people tend to want to select what should be taken lightly and what should be taken seriously. But if you cannot add up figures at this level, then can we entrust you with coming up with the right figures when all the 30,000 constituencies, elections are ongoing, and you need to collate all those within a short period of time and declare the election results? Can we really trust that you'll be able to do that with a measure of accuracy that would ensure, or would, if you like, earn the confidence of people in the process? And again, I think you had drawn my attention to this when it happened. And again, what is going on here?
And this actually gets me scared and anxious. It's actually giving me PTSD, because I'm not going to trust any kind of tabulation made by this EC again, because I'm like, what are the processes you have to make sure simple tabulation? And this is what is going to determine who is going to be the next president. Simple tabulation of this. And we are going to see a lot of this in December. A lot of this. So if you cannot just get this right when the pressure is not on, the pressure is not on. No.
Yeah.
The pressure is not on. If you cannot get this right, then what will happen when we are in December and everybody's breathing is on your back, trying to make sure you deliver our results in time. Seriously, I know people might not be worried, but when I saw this, it took me it gave me
What prompted you to add the figures to begin with? Like, because for
so,
me, if
so
I
that,
were to see something like this, I would assume that it was done with a software that
yes,
the figures were entered. Because
yes,
I do this with GIS, I can put this data in my GIS,
yes,
and if I want to label the maps based on the number of registered voters, it will automate it and it will put these numbers on the map for me right away.
yes.
And human
The truth,
error is absent, so I don't understand how it even got to this.
so the truth is, and I will have to give credit to the NDC, Dr. Omanebuam. I think that's the name, right?
Yeah.
He's the election something. Uh,
Yes, I've forgotten the
yeah,
official title.
NDC something. He tweeted about it. I
Mhm.
follow him, so I saw it. I think it was the first. It was the first. Yeah, he tweeted about it. So I'm like, really? So then I went to add the numbers.
Yeah.
I took actually took the numbers, put it in Excel, and did it. I'm like, really true. They got it wrong, and I was so surprised. I was like, wow, the people really got it wrong. And I checked the male and female too. They got it wrong. And the other one, the second day, the third day too, they got it wrong. So
Oh,
I'm
wow.
like, yeah. So I'm like, what is going on? No, they were, and it's like they're not making a big deal out of it. It's like, okay, regular day. This is not. We cannot play with this. Like
Yeah.
we can't.
Yeah. For me, usually it's not even the material impact of what has just happened, but just broadly speaking, how serious are we as a country? How serious do we take the responsibilities that are being handed to us? Right? I mean, what is the level of quality control?
Yeah.
Again, these softwares are almost, there's a lot of open source and free softwares that do some of these things, but the Electoral Commission has all the budget to have a system. I mean, GIS, ArcGIS, open source GIS softwares will do this easy. With a click of a button, within a second, you can produce a map like this. And if you want to add and produce the statistics for all the additions intact, you don't have to do it manually, and the potential of human error would arise. So it's something that beats my imagination. It makes it difficult.
And that's what we have to be scared of. If they are actually doing the thing manually, like,
Yeah.
is that what is going on? A whole electoral commission. They are actually doing, because there is no way you can tell me a software actually added the numbers and got it wrong.
No, that's not possible.
So what is going on? Mm.
In today's age, who would take a calculator and be adding these numbers manually?
I mean, if we have how much? If we have $53 million to dig a hole for a national cathedral, for something as important as a software to generate data, we don't have it.
No,
Honestly,
I think they do. It's just that people
Yeah,
don't
they
take
do.
it up seriously. That's
Yeah,
all.
and I feel the EC is one of the organizations that have been spared of all this financial trouble. They've actually been well resourced.
Yes,
So
yes.
they
I
don't lack
mean, this is
resources.
problematic because if knee was not, I think knee's tip off was the whole male female color distortion. So once you see that, you begin to question every other data the EC brings along.
No,
that's
as I said, if I were to see
Let us
this,
write a petition. Let us write a petition because this is bad on all fronts.
oh God.
no, as I said, for me, I wouldn't have been prompted to add these numbers because I use this software, I use GIS, and I know what it can do. So I wouldn't ever think that somebody will produce a map and actually add the figures themselves, right? So I wouldn't have thought that these, if you add them all up, they won't come up to the number that has been put down there. So I mean,
By the way, if our listeners are listening, the actual correct number is 19267. So
okay. Yeah, and I think it's made a
So
round on
it's
social
been
media.
bloated with over 6,000.
yes. So I'm like, is it a plan to kind of bring something somewhere? What is going on?
Yeah, yeah. At this point, as I always say, the EC doesn't deserve any benefit of the doubt at this
Oh
point,
my God.
right? They've made so many mistakes, and in some instances, we have reason to believe that some of them are deliberate, to the extent that the idea of benefit of the doubt can no longer be given to them. We have to treat every action of theirs with all the seriousness that it deserves. This cannot, I mean, there's no reason to think that this is a genuine mistake, just given the sheer amount of resources that are available in recent times to not make this type of mistake.
And,
There's
it,
really
you know, okay, a mistake, an error, one, but they made three
in a row.
yeah, three in a row. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. But again, I mean, and again, broadly speaking, is there any other observation with respect to what is going? And I like the vigilance of the NDC this time around. I think they're matching the EC boot for boot. Without the vigilance of the NDC, it is very likely that we wouldn't have heard about the missing biometric equipment. You know, apparently it was I don't know if it was a meeting that they had, and that's how come it came out. But the EC itself wasn't transparent enough to come out and say that we have this missing equipment. And also, I've learned that, in fact, they have auctioned out some of their older equipment to people.
Yep.
And that again was odd to me because these are specialized equipment that cannot be used for any other purpose besides electoral purposes. So how then do you auction these equipment to who?
And this is something that I also want to give props to Imani Africa. I feel they've done a really good job on the fights, you know, trying to keep easy on their toes. And recently, you know, one of their, I think the president or something, Franklin Kujo, you know, disagreed with EC, and he told them they kind of disenfranchised the people of the soul, I don't know, is it the soul?
Yes, so the four communities in
The
the
folk
four,
of the Sun Trophy, Akbafu,
yes,
yeah, and
Lolopi and Lepe.
yeah. So
Yes,
and try to bring facts, and apparently, what you see was saying that they put in a CI in Parliament, and Parliament did not do it. I'm like, really? You know when the election is going to take place, and you decided to put a CI when the Parliament cannot act on it.
I cannot sit.
Yeah, so it's like you've already pre-planned the thing. It's like you plan and you want to make sure that this is what I want to achieve. So I'm gonna do it at the point, and it's not like we just got up and said we want to hold an election. You knew there was an election coming up. So whatever happened, it's on the EC, and I agree with that. So they've been EC have been moving funny a lot lately. So we have to be careful with them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have been looking at the soil issue. I have some maps that are produced, and I think we would have to have a whole session about a step-by-step analysis of what transpired in the case of Saul. You know what the EC did. In fact, beginning with those who were the commission that were entrusted with the creation of the new regions. It began from them, and then the EC took over, and you know, and the whole thing went just off the rails. And I have some maps that are produced. We'll go step by step and analyze the whole situation, and I guess a lot of people hear about it, but they don't get the full picture of what really happened in that particular case. And it's just the worst thing to ever happen in any democracy, that you can disenfranchise a group of people. There's nothing worse in a democracy than that. You know, I'll put it ahead of all the corruption, because that's the very basic form of it. If you can deny some people their right to vote, then what else can't you do in a democracy? Right. So again, well, this was supposed to be our final topic. If unless you guys have any other issues related to the electoral commission, but I think we've given them enough flogging this afternoon, and it's going to continue, because we need to do that to make sure that they do the right thing, right? Yeah.
So
I just wanted to commend the NDC for being vigilant and making sure we are privy to this type of information, especially with the missing, biometric and also auctioning. They auctioned some devices as well,
Yeah,
which is actually interesting that electoral commission machines will be auctioned for
yes.
whatever reason, right? So we are grateful that the NDC have their eyes on the ground and bringing these information out so we can be able to keep an eye on the electoral commission. Me, in my concluding thoughts, the electoral commission has lost credibility in my eyes, from missing biometric, machines to auctioning, machines, to registration irregularities, to wrong data presentation. I mean, come on, we
Yeah,
can, we
yeah.
can.
Again, yeah, that auctioning thing was a little bit. I think I attempted. I was going to talk about, but it escaped me again. How do you auction equipment that is for a special purpose as election? Is somebody going to be able to use it for some other purpose or what? I mean, for security reasons, some of those equipment, if you no longer need them, you have to break them down and dismantle them so that, because it beats my imagination that you would auction equipment like that. Um,
Yeah.
you know. So again, yeah, we commend the NDC for being vigilant. I've accused them in the past for, dropping the ball on some of these things, but it looks like this time around they're not sleeping on the job, and we'll have to give them credit for that.
And one thing I want to say is our so-called peace council. When they didn't comment when the BVRs were missing, they didn't say anything. And so
Maybe they weren't aware too. So
no, but we have to let them know that they are not doing what they did some years ago, and I don't know what's happened to them, but they are really failing the good people of Ghana. And the last thing is EC should sit up. Um, I commend NDC first, and the second Imani Africa. I think they are doing a great job keeping EC on their toes, and that's all we want to see. Sometimes our journalists that are supposed to ask the hard questions are not doing that. So it's good to see other organizations like this that are trying to make
I,
sure.
I believe that journalism is dead in Ghana.
Yeah, yeah,
Most of the journalists are chasing money,
yeah.
so they have thrown all their ethics out the window, and they no longer do what we have historically known journalists to do. So, I mean, and again, I like the fact that the media space is now liberalized to the extent that we can come on and discuss issues just as people get on news file and the mainstream media and talk. And so, I mean, we are all journalists as we speak right now. I consider myself as a journalist, in fact. So, but the traditional journalism, in my opinion, is dying out because, and again, it's not so much the fact that everybody has a platform to express their opinion, but it is the fact that most journalists are no more holding themselves up to the standards of what journalism is all about. And we see that every day in Ghana, the fact that people, I mean, they don't ask the hard questions, they don't hold leaders feet to the fire, right? But I mean, come to think of it, Charlotte Osei, the former EC, was deposed for what was it? I guess the biggest supposed crime was procurement, flouting of procurement rules or whatever. But what this EC has done, in fact, at this point, I don't know what would we if it was ancient Greece, they would have been sent on exile, not even deposed alone, but they would have been asked to leave the entire, polity, so to speak. But again, we know we always have interesting conversations, and it feels like we normally heat up towards the end, and we could just keep going 2 more hours. But again, we have other things to do. And
I mean, if you see those easy graphics and you don't hit up, then I don't know, man.
Me, now you're going to have all of us create a word, an Excel sheet for easy.
Excel sheet
Right
for
now,
and waiting on the easy, right?
yes. I'm going to create an Excel sheet, and now any data I see, I'm going to punch in it so the Excel does the automatic.
Yeah, because
me
you
because
can't trust the easy figures, right?
yeah.
Back in the day, anything that was in graphic was trusted. No, you can no longer do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, well, let's draw the curtains here and then go and attend to other business.
Yeah.
But once again, I mean, thank you both for joining this. I mean, you guys have been dedicated to this effort since the beginning, and I really appreciate that. But to our viewers, we appreciate you again. The last time after the show, I went on Facebook and I seen that we had some comments on there. But real time, we are not able to take comments. But I think we'll have to figure out a way that we can take the comments of our viewers and incorporate them into our discussion. But we see you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you join us again next week. 2 p.m. Eastern time and 6 p.m. GMT Ghana time. Right. So I wish you all a good rest of the weekend. I have commencement tomorrow. But yes. So
I mean, off topic though, did you watch the commencement speech by NFL kicker Harrison Butker that went viral during the week at?
no.
Okay, I don't know who is giving a speech at your commencement, but the person should tread cautiously because we are watching, and there's currently a
Was it a
petition.
positive speech?
It was extremely patriarchal and sexist, and there's
Oh.
a current petition to get him off the NFL
What
because
college is that?
St. Benedict College. It's a Catholic college, and he's a Catholic. And
Okay.
he boldly said that his wife's life began when she took up the role of being a wife and a mother. And despite the fact that the women here are going to graduate and walk the stage, they should remember that they've been sold a diabolical lie that the most important role they will ever be or occupy is to be a wife and a mother.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, his mother is a physicist. His mother is an educated woman with a career, but he downplayed the career of all the women in that graduation ceremony, and that was unacceptable and reduced women to being a wife and a mother. So whoever is coming for your commencement, the person needs to be on guard because our eyes are watching, and we don't want to start another petition to get somebody, kicked off their job or terminated. So I'm just saying. You are not on social media, but me and I are your eyes and your ears. So make sure you sneak a little note and say, "Yo, buddy, I don't know what you're gonna say, but don't come for the women."
Yeah.
Well, when I heard that, I was like, man, the Zitarians won't be happy.
That's it. Yeah. Anyway.
That is so funny. Yes, Zitarians are holding Ghana on hostage. I think I'm working on launching our T-shirt soon. Come December 2024 elections, we are going to the polls with our Zitarian T-shirt, and I'm sending all my watchdogs there. I need you to be at the polls to make sure there's no kululu. There's no kululu.
I actually got information from an MPP inside person. He was like, the reason why Bawumia has delayed the announcement is because Mama chose a female.
And is he considering a female too? Or?
Yeah. It's been something they've been really talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it'll be good. I mean, and again,
because look at how many months do we have to December? I don't know what he's doing, but we need to know the candidate. The candidate need to be out there with you campaigning. Or am I wrong? I'm just saying.
That's true. They said what is it, June or something like that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, and I think Zita, you introduced an interesting conversation, and look, for me, I think all opinions should be welcome, no matter how unconventional or how they do not meet our traditional backgrounds in terms of what is known to be the role of whoever, woman, man, whatever. but start a conversation. And I don't like the fact that some people would take it as an opportunity to use very unprintable words against people who express opinions that in a very respectful way that differ from them, right? And Zita, you made those comments on social media, TikTok, never insulted anyone. You took a position, but there was a huge backlash against you for those comments, to the point, I mean, some of those the backlash, some of it was very toxic, debasing, and all kinds of, I mean, you can describe, and for me that is just, but again, I have to commend you for introducing a conversation. I chanced on a video that some people on GTV were actually talking about the issue that you raised, and it was a civil conversation that they had. I'm sure if you listen to some of them, you may have disagreed with them, but again, it opened a conversation that people are having in a very healthy way, and I think that should be commended. Honestly, yeah. So
It is, but we are open to different perspective. But I think there are things we call kitchen table talk. There are things that you do it, but for you to use strong words like diabolical lie and demean women spending 4 years in to get a degree as a man who has a wonderful mother with a career, and you have a daughter. I'm
yeah.
sorry, but he's getting the backlash that he deserves. I need to go on change.org to sign my petition. I don't know. You've just reminded me. I gotta go. Yes, he needs to be kicked out of the NFL. We have kitchen table talk. You could have easily submitted that as they are navigating their career. They should also consider that the role of the family is important in society. So as mothers, motherhood and being a wife is a dignifying role, and they should consider it as they navigate their career. No backlash. But for you to have said that your wife's life began when she became a wife, and
Yeah. Anyway, I think the conversation about gender has been poisoned, right? And in many cases too, it's been poisoned by people who claim to be pro-gender activists, who propagate a very toxic form of, I mean, and I don't, because they promote a certain toxicity which they put under the umbrella of gender activism. And so it has allowed the detractors to run away with that type of, if you like, gender activism, without really situating the concept of the debate about gender equality or equity on its original platform, right? It's about choice, I guess, fundamentally. So it's not really about women typically going into male-dominated roles per se, but they should have the ability to do such if they wish. But that conversation has been lost to the point where people have conversations about being a pro-gender or gender activist as somebody who hates women, who hates men, or somebody who
that
wants
is
to
the
go.
new tag.
Yeah.
I'm
So
the queen of
again, the
we're
conversation
calling
has to be brought back.
misandrist.
The
I
conversation has to be
agree.
brought back to its original frame, and you can be a woman and play your role as a mother and still be a career woman. I mean, there shouldn't be a problem if that's what you choose. Anyway, I mean, this is not our main conversation, and so let's draw the curtains, and maybe one day we would have a more social conversation. But again, those who have stayed with us in digressing into this conversation, thank you. And then we'll come back to you again next week with political, topical issues that are happening in our dear country, Ghana. We always say we are in the diaspora, but we are not a detachment from Ghana. We are a satellite office, and we see Ghana with a bird's eye view in a way that we're able to look at it very critically, be objective about happenings there. And so when we speak with a more, if you like, unique positioning. Not to say, not that our position is any superior, but we bring a different perspective to the conversation. So join us again next week, and thank you all. All right, bye.